We are going through exercise 6D, and in this video we'll be answering question 4E, which is saying solve each of the following. And here is our cubic equation that we need to solve. Now before we can solve it, we need to factorize it. Factorizing a cubic is a painful process, so we are always looking for shortcuts. So the shortcuts are, can I take a factor out of this? So 6, 5, 2x, well, there's clearly I can't take a factor out of all of them. Could I group them together? So could I like group these and then take out a common factor? I mean, I could take out a common factor of x squared here. There's nothing, I could take out a common factor of 1 here, but if I was to do that, hopefully you can just see by inspection that I'm not going to wind up in a situation like I did over here with 4C, in which I did it factorize by grouping, I took out a common factor of the first two, and I was left with x minus 1, and then for the last two, I was left with x minus 1, which then allowed me to factorize that out. I'm not going to wind up in that situation. So now that we've exhausted the shortcuts we could use, that means we're going to have to do this the long way. All right, so take a deep breath, let's begin. Step number 1 of factorizing a cubic. We are going to use our factor theorem, which tells us that if we put in a number and get out 0, we've found a factor. We don't have to just put in any random number, we just need to consider factors of our constant. So in this case, factors of 1. So let's write out all the factors of 1. Factors of 1. And obviously this is a great situation to be in, because how many factors are there of 1? Just plus or minus 1. Hooray. So that means I'm going to start by putting 1 in, and if I were to put 1 in, I'm going to get 6 minus 5 minus 2 plus 1, which is going to be equal to 6 minus 5 is going to be 1, negative 2 plus 1 is going to be negative 1, which is going to be equal to 0. Hooray, look at that, we got it on the first go. So that means we can stop here. Therefore, x minus 1 is a factor. Now, don't make the mistake, we put 1 in, that means x minus 1 is a factor. So don't make the mistake of putting x plus 1. You have to make sure that you change the sign of it. Perfect. Let us now move on to step 2, which is dividing. So now we're going to divide to find the other factor. So let's scroll down a little bit. Not too far because I need to write some things down. We're going to go x minus 1, then we're going to divide this 6x cubed minus 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. All right, now remember, we should get 0 as our remainder. If we don't, we've done something wrong. All right, let's begin. How many times does x go into 6x cubed? It goes in 6x squared. 6x squared times x is 6x cubed. 6x squared times negative 6 is negative 6x squared. Then I'm going to subtract. These are going to go away. Negative 6x or minus negative 6x squared, that's going to become positive 6x squared. Minus 5x squared plus 6x squared is going to become x squared. Then I'm going to bring down this to x. Now I just simply start again. How many times does x go into x squared? It goes in x times. X times x is x squared. X times negative x is negative x. Sorry, x times negative 1 is negative x. Oh boy, sometimes I just say things and it's just clearly not what is on the screen. Negative x. Okay, then we are going to subtract. These are going to go away. This is going to become positive x. Negative 2x plus x is going to become negative x. So negative 2x plus x is going to become negative x. I then carry down this 1. Negative x divided by negative x is going to be negative 1. Then I'm going to be left with negative x plus 1. I'm going to subtract those, which is going to leave me with 0 here. Remember, we expected 0 to be there because x minus 1 is a factor of this. So that means we should get no remainder. So now we have gotten x minus 1 and is a factor, and 6x squared plus x minus 1 is also a factor. The next step will be factorizing this quadratic. So before we do that, let's just appreciate the fact that this right here, what we call my dividend, is equal to x minus 1 6x squared plus x minus 1. They are this multiplied by that is equal to this. We've gone through that a lot in class. Let's now bring this down so we can do our third step. So let's bring this down to here. We are now going to do our third step. Oops, I didn't mean to change the color of that. We're now going to do our third step, which is going to be factorizing the quadratic, if possible. Sometimes you can't do it and you just leave this as your final answer, but we're going to factorize the quadratic. All right, let's scroll down. All right, so how are we going to do this? If we're going to factorize this, well, remember, we've got a coefficient in front of our x squared term, so that makes things a little bit different. We're going to have to go 6 times -1 is -6. So we're going to need two numbers that multiply to get -6, and the sum has to also be 1. What are those numbers going to be? Well, quite clearly, it's going to be 3 and -2, because 3 times -2 is -6. 3 plus -2 is 1. So that means I can now rewrite this as x minus 1. Now, remember, things are a little different because I have a coefficient in front of my 6x squared. So now I'm going to go, it's going to be 6x squared. This x can be broken down into plus 3x minus 2x minus 1. So I've broken that x down into these. 3x minus 2x is x. So I haven't changed anything. Now I can factorize by grouping. So I'm going to consider that, and I'm going to consider that. So we're going to go x minus 1, whoops, x minus 1. I can take out a common factor of 3x here. So this is going to become 3x. And then here I'm going to be left with 2x plus 1. Over here I can take out a common factor of -1, which is going to leave me with 2x plus 1. You can immediately see that this has worked because I have 2x plus 1, 2x plus 1. So that means now I can go x minus 1. I can take out this common factor of 2x plus 1. And then I'm going to be left with 3x minus 1. 3x minus 1. Phew. All right, we're nearly there. Now that we're here, we can now use our null factor law. Which is going to be x is equal to 1. Then I'm going to solve this for x, which is going to be -1/2. Then I'm going to solve this for x, which is going to be 1/3. And just like that, we have now done. So that was an involved process right there. There was quite a few things you had to do. So our answer is 1, -1/2, and 1/3. So hopefully that made things clear as to what you have to do there. There's quite a few steps involved. Let's just zoom out and appreciate all the work we've done here, going through A, C, and E. Quite a lot of work there, but hopefully all of that makes sense to you. I will see you in the next video.